The explosion shook the ground beneath Taemin's feet. He pressed himself against the broken wall, breathing hard. His rifle clutched tight in both hands. Dust filled the air and made everything gray. He could not see his team anymore. The communication device in his ear made only static sounds. Taemin was alone. He was a medic with the Terran Defense Forces. For 3 years, humans had been fighting the Velran Empire. The aliens wanted human colony worlds. Humans wanted to protect their homes. Nobody wanted to stop fighting. Too much blood had been spilled on both sides. The moon called Velis 4 was supposed to be an easy mission. Get in, destroy the Velran communication tower, get out. But nothing ever went easy in war. The Velrans had been waiting. The ambush scattered his unit across the ruined outpost. Now Taemin needed to find shelter and wait for extraction. He moved carefully through the destroyed buildings. The Velran outpost had been bombed weeks ago by human forces. Only broken walls and twisted metal remained. His boots crunched on debris with each step. That was when he heard it. A small sound. Almost like crying, Taemin stopped. Every part of his training told him to keep moving. Enemy territory was no place to investigate strange noises. But the sound came again. It was definitely crying. A child crying. He followed the sound to a collapsed building. Part of the roof had fallen in. Broken support beams lay everywhere, and beneath a large piece of concrete he saw movement. Something small. Something alive. Taemin knelt down and looked closer. His breath caught in his throat. It was a Velran child. He had never seen a young Velran before. The adults were tall, with gray-blue skin and eyes that glowed softly in the dark. This little one was maybe 4 feet tall. Her skin was lighter, almost silver. Patterns on her arms and face flickered with weak blue light. Those patterns usually glowed bright on healthy Velrans. On this child, they barely showed at all. She looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes. Her small hand reached toward him. She made a sound. Not words he understood, but the meaning was clear. "Help me, please help me." Taemin's hand moved to his rifle. The smart thing would be to walk away. She was the enemy. Her people had killed humans. Her people had killed his sister 2 years ago in a raid on his homeworld. He should leave her here, but she was just a child. A scared, hurt child trapped under rubble. His hand moved away from the rifle. He took off his pack instead. "Okay," he said softly. "Okay, I will help you." She probably did not understand his words, but his tone seemed to calm her a little. The crying became quieter. Taemin examined the situation. A heavy concrete slab pinned her legs. Moving it wrong could cause more injury. He needed to be careful. He pulled out his small medical scanner. The device was made for humans, but it could detect basic life signs in most species. He moved it over the child's body. The reading made him worried. Internal bleeding. Damaged organs. Broken bones. She was dying. Taemin worked quickly. He used a piece of metal as a lever. Slowly, carefully, he lifted the concrete slab inch by inch. The child whimpered in pain but stayed still. Smart kid. She understood he was trying to help. It took an hour to free her legs. When the concrete finally moved away, Taemin saw the damage. Her left leg was badly broken. Dark blue blood seeped through her clothing. He had to stop the bleeding fast. His medical training covered basic Velran anatomy. Know your enemy, the instructor said. Know how to kill them. But the same knowledge that taught him where to shoot also taught him how to heal. He injected her with a painkiller. He hoped the dosage was right. Velran bodies processed medicine differently than humans. Too much could kill her. Too little would leave her in agony. He gave her what he thought was safe. Then he started treating her wounds. He cleaned them with antiseptic. He wrapped her leg in a splint made from broken metal rods and cloth from his own uniform. He gave her water from his canteen. She drank it desperately. The hours passed. Taemin monitored her vital signs constantly. The scanner showed her condition stabilizing. Not great, but stable. She would live if she got proper medical care soon. Night fell on Velis 4. The child started crying again. Not from pain this time, from fear. She was in a dark, destroyed building with a strange alien soldier. Of course she was afraid. Taemin did something he had not done in a long time. He started singing old songs his mother taught him when he was young. Korean lullabies from Earth. Songs about the moon and stars and sleeping safely through the night. He did not know if the child understood any of it, but his voice seemed to comfort her. She stopped crying. Her glowing patterns brightened just a little. She reached out and grabbed his hand. Her small fingers wrapped around his much larger ones. "It will be okay," Timon whispered. "Someone will come for you." He stayed awake through the whole night. He checked her injuries every hour. He gave her more water. He sang more songs when she seemed restless. By morning, she was looking much better. The scanner showed the internal bleeding had stopped. Her glowing patterns were stronger. That was when he heard the sounds outside. Heavy footsteps. Velaran voices, soldiers. Timon slowly stood up. He moved to the doorway and looked out. A Velaran patrol was searching the ruins. 6 soldiers, all armed, all looking for survivors he could hide. He could run. He might escape, but the child could not run. She needed medical help he could not provide. She needed her people. Timon made his choice. He placed his rifle on the ground. He raised his hands above his head. He walked out into the open where the Velaran soldiers could see him. They spotted him immediately. Weapons came up. Voices shouted in the Velaran language. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. "Do not move." "Get on the ground," he knelt slowly. He kept his hands up. He spoke in a calm voice, even though they probably could not understand him. "There is a child inside. She is hurt. Please help her." The soldiers moved toward him. One of them went into the building. A moment later, the soldier came back out carrying the little girl. She looked around with wide eyes. When she saw Timon kneeling on the ground, she started crying. She reached for him. She called out in her language. The soldiers looked at each other. They looked at Timon. They looked at the child. One of them spoke into a communication device. Timon stayed kneeling. His war was over. He had been captured. But the child was safe. That was what mattered. The little girl kept reaching for him, kept crying his name in a language he did not speak. One of the soldiers finally walked over and pulled Timon to his feet. They bound his hands. They took him to their transport ship, and the whole time the child would not stop looking at him, would not stop calling for him. Timon wondered what would happen next. He wondered if he would ever see another sunrise. But at least he had done one good thing in this terrible war. He had saved a life instead of taking one. The Velaran warship was called the Eternal Tide. Timon had seen it before from a distance during battles. Up close it was massive. The ship stretched for miles, its dark hull covered in lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. He was led through corridors filled with Velaran soldiers who stared at him with hate in their glowing eyes. They brought him to a holding cell. It was small and cold. A force field hummed across the doorway instead of bars. Timon sat on the metal bench and waited. He expected interrogation. Maybe torture. Maybe a quick execution. That was what happened to prisoners of war. But hours passed and nobody came. He could hear activity outside. Voices speaking in the Velaran language. Footsteps going back and forth. Something was happening. Finally, the force field dropped. 4 armed guards entered. They pulled Timon to his feet and marched him through the ship. They went up several levels. The corridors became wider and cleaner. They were heading to the command section. The guards stopped at a large door. It opened automatically. They pushed Timon inside. The room was clearly a briefing chamber. A long table dominated the center. Velaran officers stood around it, their expressions hard. At the head of the table sat an older Velaran with silver patterns covering his skin. Admiral Kale, Timon guessed, the ship's commander. But Timon's attention went to the Velaran woman standing beside the admiral. She was tall and strong-looking. Her uniform showed many medals. Her glowing patterns were bright gold, marking her as high-ranking, her eyes fixed on Timon with an intensity that made him want to step back. This was Commander Nira. He could tell by the way everyone looked at her with respect and a little fear. "Human," the admiral said. A small device on the table translated his words into Korean. "You are Sergeant Timon of the Terran Defense Forces. Combat medic. Age 28. From the colony world called New Sol." Timon said nothing. Name, rank, and serial number. That was all he had to give according to military law. But Commander Nira stepped forward. She spoke and the translator converted her words. "You saved my daughter's life." Timon looked at her in surprise. The little girl was her daughter? He saw the resemblance now. The same shaped eyes. The same patterns on their skin. "She is alive because of you," Nira continued. Her voice was controlled, but he could hear emotion underneath. "My medical officers say she would have died in less than 6 hours without treatment." You gave her that treatment. You stayed with her for 18 hours. You protected her until we arrived. She was a child in need of help, Taman said simply. That is all. Several officers made angry sounds. One of them spoke rapidly in Velran. The translator picked up fragments. Enemy, trick, cannot trust. But Nira held up her hand for silence. She walked around the table until she stood directly in front of Tai Min. My daughter told me things, she said. She said you were gentle. You spoke to her in soft tones. You sang songs to keep her calm. You shared your water and food even though you had little. You monitored her condition constantly. Nira's eyes searched his face. Why, we are your enemies. We have killed your people. Why did you save her? Taman met her gaze. Because she was afraid and hurt. Because she reminded me of my sister at that age. Because I am a medic and I took an oath to save lives. Not just human lives. Any life. The room fell silent. The officers looked at each other. Admiral Kale leaned back in his chair, studying Taman carefully. Nira turned to the Admiral. She spoke in Velran. The conversation went back and forth. Other officers joined in. Voices rose. It was clearly an argument. Taman caught his name several times in their discussion. Finally, Nira said something sharp and final. The room went quiet. Admiral Kyle looked displeased, but he nodded slowly. Nira turned back to Taman. In our culture, we have something called a life debt. When someone saves a life, especially a child's life, that creates a bond, a sacred obligation. The saved one owes the saver. The family owes the saver. I want no payment, Taman said. I did what was right. It is not about what you want, Nira replied. It is about honor. About doing what is right on our side as well. She took a breath. My daughter has not been the same since we brought her aboard. She has nightmares. She screams in her sleep. She wakes up terrified. The only thing that calms her is when she talks about you. The kind human. The singing human. She asks for you constantly. Taman felt his chest tighten. He understood trauma in children. He had seen it many times in war zones. Our doctors say she needs stability and comfort to heal mentally, Nira continued. She needs to feel safe. And right now you are the only one who makes her feel safe. What are you saying? Taman asked. Nira's expression was complicated. Pride and concern and something else fought across her features. I am saying that I am giving you a choice. You can remain here on this ship as my daughter's companion. You will stay in my quarters under constant supervision. You will help her recover from her trauma. You will be a prisoner, yes, but a treated one. You will have food, shelter, and safety. And if I refuse? Taman asked. Then you go to a standard prisoner camp, interrogation, hard labor. The things that happen to enemy soldiers. Nira's voice softened slightly. But my daughter will suffer. She will not understand why you left her. Children do not understand war insides. They only understand who makes them feel safe and who does not. It was not really a choice. Taman knew that. But something in Nira's eyes told him she was being sincere. This was difficult for her. Going against her own officers. Against military protocol. All for her daughter's well-being. How long? He asked. Until my daughter no longer needs you. Until she can sleep through the night without nightmares. Until she feels safe again. Taman thought about the hard metal bench in the cell. He thought about interrogation rooms and labor camps. He thought about a scared little girl calling for him. I will stay, he said. I will help her. Relief flashed across Nira's face, so quick he almost missed it. She nodded formally. You will follow all rules. You will not try to escape. You will not access any ship systems or communicate with your people. You will remain in the quarters at all times except for supervised medical checks. If you break any of these rules, the agreement ends. Do you understand? I understand, Admiral Kale spoke. The translator converted his words. This is highly irregular, Commander Nira. Keeping an enemy soldier in your personal quarters. Many on this ship will not approve. Then they do not need to know the details, Nira replied firmly. He will be listed as a special prisoner under my direct supervision. That is all they need to know. The Admiral sighed but nodded. Very well. But he is your responsibility. Any problems and he goes to the camps immediately. Agreed, Nira said. She gestured to the guards. Take him to medical for a full examination. Then bring him to my quarters. I will inform my daughter. As the guards led Taman out, he looked back once. Nira stood with her arms crossed, watching him go. Her expression was unreadable, but in her eyes he saw a mother's desperate hope. He was a prisoner on an enemy warship. His people probably thought he was dead. His future was completely uncertain, but a little girl needed him, and somehow that felt like reason enough to keep going. The door closed behind him and Taemin walked toward whatever came next. The medical examination took 2 hours. Velrun doctors studied Taemin like he was a specimen. They checked his vital signs, took blood samples, and scanned every part of his body. They spoke to each other in clinical tones, discussing his biology as if he could not hear them. The translator stayed off during the exam. When they finished, the guards took him through the ship again. They went to the officers' residential section. The quarters here were larger and more comfortable than the military sections. They stopped at a door marked with Nira's name and rank symbols. The door opened. Taemin stepped inside. The quarters were bigger than he expected. A main living area with comfortable furniture. Small kitchen area. 2 doors leading to what must be bedrooms. One wall showed a large viewing screen displaying the stars outside. Everything was clean and organized. Military neat, but with small touches of home. A blanket on the couch. Pictures on a shelf. A child's drawings attached to the cooling unit. Nira stood near the window. She had changed from her uniform into simpler clothes. She looked less like a commander and more like a tired mother. "The rules," she said without greeting. "You sleep on the couch here. The bedrooms are off limits. You may use the bathroom and kitchen when needed. Do not touch the computer console. Do not go near the door controls. A guard is posted outside at all times." "Understood?" "Understood," Taemin replied. "My daughter is sleeping now," Nira continued. "The doctors gave her medicine to help her rest. She will wake in a few hours. When she does, she will want to see you. Be gentle with her. She has been through much trauma." "I will." Nira studied him for a long moment. "I do not trust you, human. But my daughter does. That creates a difficult situation for both of us." "I know," Taemin said. "For what it is worth, I will not betray your trust. I'm here for her, not for any military purpose. We will see." Nira walked to one of the bedroom doors. "I have command duties. I will be back later. Do not make me regret this decision." She disappeared into her room. Taemin stood alone in the living area. He looked around his new prison. It was certainly better than a cell. He sat on the couch and waited. 3 hours later, he heard a sound from the other bedroom. A small cry, then another, then full crying. The bedroom door opened. Nira emerged, holding a small figure. The child, Lyra, was sobbing into her mother's shoulder. Nira spoke softly in Velrun, trying to comfort her, but the crying continued. Then Lyra looked up. She saw Taemin sitting on the couch. Her eyes went wide. She stopped crying immediately. She wiggled in her mother's arms, reaching toward him. "Taemin," she said, his name in her voice. She had learned it somehow. Nira carried her over. She set Lyra down carefully, mindful of the splint still on her leg. The child moved as fast as she could with her injury, practically hopping on one foot. She crashed into Taemin and wrapped her small arms around him. "You stayed," Lyra said in Velrun. The translator device on the wall picked it up. "You did not leave me." Taemin hugged her back carefully. "I told you it would be okay," he said gently. "I am here." Lyra pulled back and started talking rapidly. The translator worked hard to keep up. She told him about the doctors and the medicine in her room and how she was scared he had left. She showed him her leg in its new medical cast. She asked if he would sing the songs again. Nira watched this interaction with a complicated expression. She finally spoke. "She has not smiled once since we brought her aboard. Until now." Taemin looked at the small girl chattering happily at him. "Children are resilient. She just needed to feel safe." "Safe with an enemy soldier," Nira said quietly. "The universe has a strange sense of humor." Over the following days, a routine developed. Taemin woke early and made breakfast. He learned what Velruns ate by watching Nira. Their food was different from human food, but not completely strange. Lots of protein, vegetables that glowed slightly, drinks that tasted like fruit but were actually processed minerals. Lyra followed him everywhere. She taught him Velrun words: table, chair, food, sky, mother, friend. She was a patient teacher, repeating words until he got the pronunciation right. His accent made her giggle. In return, he taught her Korean words. She learned quickly. Within a week, they were mixing both languages together in their conversations. He continued singing to her and she memorized the songs. Her favorite was a lullaby about the moon watching over sleeping children. Nira worked long hours on the command deck, but she always came back for dinner. At first they ate in silence. Nira watched Taemin constantly looking for any sign of danger, but gradually she began to relax. One evening, after Lyra went to bed, Nira sat across from Taemin in the living area. She poured herself a drink from a bottle she kept hidden in a cabinet. The Velran equivalent of alcohol, Taemin guessed. "Tell me about your sister," Nira said suddenly. Taemin looked up in surprise. "My sister? You mentioned her when we first brought you aboard. You said my daughter reminded you of her." Taemin was quiet for a moment. "Her name was Jiwon. She was 12 when she died. A Velran raid on our colony. She was in school when the bombs fell." Nira's expression tightened. "I am sorry. Are you?" Taemin asked. "Not angry, just curious, yes," Nira said firmly. "I did not order that raid. I do not know which commander did. But I am sorry for your loss. Children should not die in wars they did not start." "Then why do we keep fighting?" Taemin asked. Nira took a long drink. "Because both sides have lost too much to stop. Your people have grievances. My people have grievances. Everyone wants justice for their dead. But justice looks like revenge, and revenge looks like more death." "You sound tired of it," Taemin observed. "I am," Nira admitted. "I have been fighting for 7 years. Before this war, I was a scientist. I studied stellar formations. I wrote papers about the birth of stars. Then your people expanded into territory we claimed. Then we fought back. Then everything spiraled. I was a medical student," Taemin said. "I wanted to be a doctor in a children's hospital. Then Jiwon died. Then I enlisted. I thought I could save lives on the battlefield instead." They sat in silence, two people from different worlds bonded by similar losses. "Have you saved many lives?" Nira asked. "Some," Taemin said. "Not enough." "Never enough." More evenings passed. The conversations continued. Nira told him about Velran culture, the meditation rituals they did each morning, the way their skin patterns showed emotions if you knew how to read them, the importance of family and honor in their society. Taemin told her about Earth and the colony worlds, about Korean traditions his family maintained even on distant planets, about food and festivals and the way humans found home wherever they went. Lyra improved every day. Her nightmares became less frequent. She laughed more. She played with toys and drew pictures. Many of her drawings showed 3 figures together. When Taemin asked who they were, she said, "You, me, and Mama." One night, after putting Lyra to bed together, Nira poured 2 drinks instead of 1. She handed one to Taemin. "Two unlikely circumstances," she said. They touched glasses carefully. The drink burned going down but left a pleasant warmth. "Can I ask you something?" Taemin said. "You may ask. I may not answer." "Why did you really keep me here? The life debt is real, I understand that. But you could have honored it in other ways. Why let an enemy soldier live in your home?" Nira was quiet for a long time. Finally she spoke. "Because I saw how you looked at my daughter. Like she mattered. Like she was a person, not just an enemy child. And I realized that if humans could see Velrans as people, and Velrans could see humans as people, maybe this war does not have to last forever." She looked at him directly. "You are an experiment, Taemin, a test. If you and I can live in the same space without killing each other, if we can care for a child together, if we can talk and find common ground, then maybe peace is possible." "That is a lot of weight to put on one person," Taemin said. "I know," Nira replied, "but sometimes big changes start with small actions. You saved one child. That one action brought you here. Who knows what comes next?" Who knows indeed, Taemin thought. He was a prisoner on an enemy ship, but he was also sitting comfortably, sharing drinks with a woman who should be his enemy, helping raise a child who called him friend. The universe was strange indeed, and somewhere in the strangeness, Taemin found himself almost content. 3 months passed aboard the Eternal Tide. Taemin's life fell into a comfortable rhythm. Wake up, make breakfast, teach Lyra her lessons while Nira worked, share meals together, talk late into the night when Lyra slept. It was almost normal. Almost peaceful, but it could not last. War never allowed peace for long. The alarm woke them in the middle of ship's night. Red lights flashed. A voice spoke urgently over the ship's communication system. Taemin did not need a translator to understand. They were under attack. Nira bolted from her bedroom, already pulling on her uniform. "Stay here," she ordered Taemin. "Keep Lyra safe." Do not leave these quarters, she ran out the door. Taman heard her shouting orders to the guards outside. Then her footsteps disappeared down the corridor. Lyra emerged from her room frightened. The alarm scared her. Taman picked her up and held her close. It will be okay, he said, even though he did not know if that was true. The ship shook. An explosion somewhere. Distant but powerful, Lyra buried her face in his shoulder. Through the viewing screen, Taman saw human ships in attack formation. His people had found the eternal tide. The battle raged for an hour. The ship shook repeatedly. Lights flickered. Taman heard running feet in the corridors outside. Shouted orders, the sounds of damage control teams rushing past. Then something changed. The ship listed to one side. Gravity fluctuated. Emergency systems kicked in. Another massive explosion, much closer this time. The door to the quarters suddenly opened. Not Nira. One of the guards, his skin patterns flashing with alarm. Hull breach in Section 7, the guard said. The translator barely kept up with his rapid speech. Civilian areas. Evacuation ordered. Come now. Where is Commander Nira? Taman asked. On the command deck. She ordered me to get her daughter to safety. Move now. Taman grabbed Lyra and followed the guard into the corridor. Other Velrans ran past, heading for emergency stations. The guard led them toward the nearest evacuation point. They were halfway there when the corridor ahead exploded. The blast threw them backward. Taman twisted in midair, protecting Lyra with his body. He hit the wall hard. Pain shot through his shoulder. But Lyra was unhurt, crying but safe in his arms. The guard was not so lucky. He lay motionless on the floor, his glowing patterns going dark. Dead. Smoke filled the corridor. Flames burned on the walls. And through the smoke, Taman saw something that made his heart stop. A hole in the ship's hull, small but growing as stressed metal gave way. Air was being sucked out into space. Velrans were trapped on the wrong side of the breach. Civilians, maybe 20 of them. They pressed against the walls, trying to avoid the pull of vacuum. But the hole grew larger. Soon it would take them all. Taman looked down at Lyra. He looked back the way they had come. The route to safety was still open behind them. He could run. He could get Lyra to an evacuation pod. His duty was to the child, not to enemy civilians. But those were people dying. Mothers and fathers, children, just like humans. Just like the people he had sworn to protect when he became a medic. He made his choice. Hold tight to me, he told Lyra. Do not let go no matter what. She wrapped her arms around his neck. Taman ran toward the breach, not away from it. His combat engineering training kicked in. He saw what needed to be done. There was an emergency bulkhead panel on the wall near the breach. If he could activate it, the heavy door would seal this section off. The people would be safe, but the panel was on the wrong side of the breach. He would have to cross through the danger zone to reach it. Taman ran. The pull of vacuum grabbed at him. He held Lyra tight with one arm and used his other arm to grab onto wall fixtures. Hand over hand, he pulled himself forward. Debris flew past him toward the hull. Small objects at first, then larger pieces. A chair tumbled past, inches from his head. He reached the panel. His fingers worked the Velrun controls. He had watched Nira use similar panels in their quarters. The symbols were different, but the logic was similar. Open, close, lock, emergency seal. He found the right control and pressed it hard. Metal groaned. The bulkhead door started to descend from the ceiling. Slow at first, then faster. The heavy barrier came down between the breach and the trapped civilians. But Taman and Lyra were on the wrong side. He ran again, back toward safety. The door was closing. The gap got smaller. 3 feet, 2 feet. He dove, sliding across the floor, holding Lyra against his chest with both arms. They passed under the door with inches to spare. It sealed shut with a heavy thud. The pulling wind stopped. The corridor on this side was safe. Taman lay on the floor, breathing hard. Lyra clung to him, shaking. Around them, the Velrun civilians stared in shock. An older Velrun woman knelt beside them. She spoke in Velrun. The translator on the wall caught it. You saved us. You are human. Enemy. But you saved us. I am a medic, Taman said, getting slowly to his feet. I save people. That is what I do. More Velruns gathered around. They looked at him with confusion and gratitude. A human prisoner had just risked his life for them. It did not make sense in the context of war. But it had happened. We must get to evacuation pods, Taman said. The ship is damaged. We need to move. One of the Velrans, a male in a military uniform with engineering symbols, nodded. This way. I know a safe route. They moved as a group through the damaged ship. The engineer led them around breached sections and through secure corridors. Other Velrans joined them. Word spread quickly. The human prisoner was helping evacuate civilians. They reached an evacuation bay. Pods lined the walls, small craft designed to get people away from a damaged ship. The engineer started loading people into pods. Families together. Children first. T-Min helped where he could. He carried injured Velrans. He comforted frightened children. He worked alongside enemy soldiers to save enemy civilians, and nobody stopped him. Nobody questioned it. They were all too busy trying to survive. That was when he heard a voice he recognized. Speaking Korean, Tae-min. Oh my God, Tae-min! He turned. Standing in the doorway of the evacuation bay in human military armor was Hana, his squad mate, his friend. She had been with him on Velis 4 before they got separated. Hana ran to him. She grabbed his shoulders. We thought you were dead. We have been searching for 3 months. Intel said there was a human prisoner on this ship, but we could not confirm. I volunteered for the rescue team. I have been searching every deck, Hana, Taemin said, relief and confusion mixed in his voice. Come on, Hana said urgently. Our ships are standing by. We have maybe 10 minutes before we have to pull back. I can get you out. We can go home. Home. The word sounded strange to Taemin now. He looked down at Lyra, still clinging to him. He looked at the Velran civilians he had just saved. He thought about Nira up on the command deck fighting to save her ship and crew. I cannot, he said quietly. Hana stared at him. What, Taemin, this is a rescue. We came for you. You are a prisoner of war. We need to leave now. I know, Taemin said. But I cannot leave, not yet. Not like this, why not? Hana demanded. Then she noticed Lyra. The small Velran child wrapped around Taemin like he was her entire world. Understanding and confusion crossed Hana's face. Taemin, what is going on? It is complicated, he said. I saved her life. I have been helping her recover. Her mother trusted me. These people just watched me save them from a hull breach. If I leave now, what does that say? That I only help when it is convenient? That my care only extends to my own side? You do not owe them anything, Hana said. You are a prisoner. You should not even be alive. This is your chance to escape. I am not escaping from anything, Taemin replied. I am choosing to stay. That is insane. Maybe, Taemin agreed. But it feels right. Hana looked at him for a long moment. Anger and worry and sadness fought on her face. Finally, she spoke quietly. They will call you a traitor. They will say you went over to the enemy side. I know. I can report you as dead, killed in the fighting. That way you will not be marked as a deserter. Thank you, Taemin said softly. Hana pulled him into a fierce hug. You better survive this war, you idiot. If you die on this ship, I will never forgive you. I will try my best, she pulled back. She looked at Lyra and said something in broken Velran. Take care of him, little one. Then Hana turned and ran back toward the human insertion point. Taemin watched her go, his last connection to his old life disappearing into the smoke. The evacuation continued. The engineer got everyone loaded into pods. Taemin made sure Lyra was secure in a pod with other children. As the pods launched toward safety, Taemin stayed behind to help with the wounded. Hours later, when the battle finally ended, Nira found him in a medical bay. He was helping Velran doctors treat the injured. She stopped in the doorway and stared. You stayed, she said. Yes. Your people came for you. I was informed of human soldiers on my ship. They came to rescue you, and you stayed? Yes, Taemin said again. Nira walked over to him. Her expression was beyond complicated now. Why? Taemin looked at her. Because Lyra needed me. Because those civilians needed me. Because I made a choice 3 months ago to see Velrans as people, and I cannot unmake that choice just because it became convenient. Nira was silent for a long time. Then, to his surprise, she placed her hand on his shoulder. A gesture of respect in Velran culture. You are an extraordinary person, Taemin, she said quietly, and I do not. The story of what happened aboard the Eternal Tide spread quickly through both fleets. A human prisoner who saved Velran civilians. A combat medic who chose to stay with the enemy rather than escape. The reactions were mixed and strong. On the human side, many called Taemin a traitor. They said he had betrayed his people for the enemy, but others, especially those who knew him, told a different story. Anna filed her report exactly as she promised. Sergeant Taman had died helping evacuate civilians during the battle. His actions showed the best of human nature, even in war. The report made its way up the chain of command. Military leaders read it carefully. Some dismissed it as propaganda, but others saw something else. A chance, an opening, a possibility they had not considered before. On the Velran side, the civilians Taman saved talked about what they witnessed. A human who risked everything for strangers. An enemy soldier who acted with honor and compassion. Officers who had doubted Nira's decision to keep. Taman aboard now had to reconsider. Admiral Kale called Nira to his office 3 days after the battle. "Your human saved 47 lives," the Admiral said, including 6 high-ranking civilian officials who were visiting the ship. "Their families are very grateful. They are also very confused." "So am I," Nira admitted. "What do you intend to do with him?" Kale asked. "I do not know," Nira said honestly. "He could have escaped. He chose to stay. That changes things." "It changes everything," Kale corrected. "We cannot keep this quiet anymore. Too many people know. The story is spreading. We need to decide what he represents. Is he still a prisoner? Is he something else?" Nira thought about the question. She thought about 3 months of living with Taman. The conversations. The shared meals. The way he cared for Lyra. The way he made her laugh when Nira could not. The way he listened when Nira needed to talk about the weight of command. "I think he represents a possibility," she said finally. "The possibility that this war does not have to end in total destruction." Admiral Kale studied her. "You have changed, Commander. 3 months ago, you wanted nothing but victory over the humans. Now you sound almost peaceful." "3 months ago, I had not spent every day talking to one," Nira replied. "It is hard to hate an entire species when you know one of them as a person. When you have seen them sing lullabies to your child. When you have shared your fears and hopes with them over late-night drinks." "Dangerous thinking," Kale said. But his tone was not harsh. "It was thoughtful, perhaps," Nira agreed. "Or perhaps it is the only thinking that will save both our species from destroying each other." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. "There are rumors of peace talks, unofficial channels. Both sides testing the waters. Neither side trusts the other enough to make the first real move." He looked at Nira directly. "What if we had a bridge? Someone who has lived with both sides. Someone who could speak to the humanity of both species." Nira understood immediately. "You want to use Taman?" "I want to give him a choice," Kale corrected. "But yes. If he agrees, he could attend preliminary peace discussions as an independent observer. Not representing either side. Just being himself. Showing that coexistence is possible." "That is a lot to ask," Nira said. "It is. But he has already done the impossible. Perhaps he can do it again." Nira brought the proposal to Taman that evening. They sat in their usual places in the living quarters. Lyra was asleep in her room, finally having peaceful dreams most nights. Taman listened to everything. When Nira finished, he was quiet for a long time. "I'm just one person," he finally said. "I do not have the power to end a war." "No one person does," Nira replied. "But someone has to take the first step. Someone has to show both sides that the enemy has a face, has a heart, has reasons for fighting that make sense to them. And if it does not work, if both sides reject the idea, then at least we tried," Nira said. "At least we did not simply accept that war is the only option." Taman looked at her. Really looked at her. He saw the hope in her eyes. The exhaustion from years of fighting, the desperate wish for something better. "You believe this could work," he said. "I believe it is worth trying," Nira answered. "I believe that if you and I can sit here talking peacefully, if you can love my daughter and I can trust you with her, then maybe others can find that same understanding." "Will you be there? At the peace talks?" "Yes. I have been asked to represent the Velran military perspective." Taman smiled slightly. "Then I will do it. I will try." Relief washed over Nira's face. She reached across and took his hand, a gesture that had become natural between them over the months. No longer enemy to enemy. Friends. Maybe more, though neither had spoken of it. "Thank you," she said quietly. The peace talks were held on a neutral space station, a place owned by neither humans nor Velrans. Both sides sent small delegations. Military leaders, diplomats, advisors, everyone was cautious. Everyone expected the talks to fail. Taman arrived with the Velran delegation. When the human representatives saw him, there was shock, then confusion, then anger. "That is Sergeant Taman," one of the human generals said. "He was reported killed in action. What is he doing with the Velrans?" A diplomatic incident threatened before the talks even began. But then Hana stepped forward. She was there as a military liaison. She told them the truth. Everything that had happened. The rescue. The choice. The civilian lives saved. "He is not a traitor," Hana said firmly. "He is the bravest person I know. And if anyone can help us understand the Velrans as people instead of just enemies, it is him." The talks began awkwardly. Both sides threw accusations, listed grievances, demanded justice for their dead, the usual pattern that had kept the war going for 3 years. But then Taemin spoke, not as a representative of either side. Just as himself, he told his story, finding Lyra in the rubble, choosing to save her even though she was the enemy, living among Velrans and learning their culture, discovering that they loved their children just as humans did, that they feared death just as humans did, that they wanted peace just as humans did. "I lost my sister to this war," Taemin said. "Commander Nira lost her brother. We both have reasons to hate. We both have justifications for revenge. But revenge just creates more revenge, more death, more orphans, more grief." He looked around the table at both delegations. "I am not asking you to forget what has happened. I am not asking you to pretend the grievances do not exist. I'm asking you to see each other as I have learned to see the Velrans, as people, as parents and children and individuals who are tired of war." Nira spoke next. She talked about Taemin saving her daughter, about the life debt that brought them together, about slowly learning that humans were not the monsters Velran propaganda portrayed. "He could have escaped," she said. "He had the chance. But he stayed to save my people. Enemy civilians, because to him they were not enemies. They were people in danger." Other voices joined. Velran civilians who Taemin had saved. Human officers who had heard his story. Slowly, carefully, the conversation shifted. From accusations to questions. From demands to discussions. From war talk to peace talk. It did not solve everything. Wars do not end in a day. But a ceasefire was agreed upon. A temporary halt to fighting while more talks continued. It was a small step. But it was a step forward. When the first round of talks ended, Taemin walked out into the observation deck of the space station. He looked out at the stars. So many worlds out there. So much possibility. So much that could be built instead of destroyed. Nira found him there. Lyra was with her, holding her mother's hand. "We did it," Nira said quietly. "A ceasefire. Not peace yet, but a chance for peace." "It is a start," Taemin agreed. Lyra ran to him. He picked her up and she hugged his neck. "Does this mean you can stay with us forever?" she asked. "No more hiding? No more being a prisoner?" Taemin looked at Nira. She looked back. There were many things unspoken between them. Feelings that had grown over months of forced proximity that became chosen companionship. "I do not know what comes next," Taemin said honestly. "I belong to neither side now. I am human, but I cannot go back to my military. I have lived with Velrans, but I am not one of you." "You belong with us," Lyra said simply. "You belong with me and Mama, that is all that matters." Nira smiled. A real smile. Not the commander smile she wore in public. The warm smile Taemin had learned to recognize over late-night conversations. "She is right," Nira said. "You belong with us. If you want to. I know it is complicated. I know there are many obstacles. But I would like you to stay. Not as a prisoner. Not as an obligation. But as family. Family." The word hit Taemin hard. He had lost his family to the war. His sister. His parents who died from grief. For 3 years he had been alone, a soldier with no home. But here in this impossible situation with these impossible people he had found something like home again. "I would like that," he said quietly. "Very much," Lyra cheered. Nira stepped closer and took Taemin's free hand. The three of them stood together looking out at the stars. The war was not over. There would be setbacks. There would be those on both sides who rejected peace. The road ahead was long and uncertain. But in that moment, standing together as a small family that should not exist, they represented something powerful. Hope, understanding, the possibility that enemies could become friends, that war did not have to be forever.